Welcome to Fleet Auto News Podcast. I'm Caroline Falls, and today I'm speaking with Ray Martin, yes, the Ray Martin, the television journalist, and his colleague Matthew Vaughan, who has developed a revolutionary truck suspension system being sold as base air. We're going to talk about the product and how and why Ray became involved in its development and introduction. Hello and welcome, Ray and Matthew.
Hi, Caroline. Nice to talk to you.
Yeah, how are you, Caroline?
Very well, thank you. Firstly, I'm going to say I've worked as a journalist for more than 30 years at the old Fairfax and for Bloomberg for more than a decade, but I don't recall ever having interviewed a journalist. I'm tempted to hand over to you, Ray, to ask the questions in your mellifluous voice, but then, hey, this is my gig, so I'm going to hang on to the reins. I'm curious, though, Ray, about how you became involved in a trucking component business. So let's start there. How did you meet Matthew and become involved with Base Air?
It's a long story over about 15 years. I'll keep it nice and short. We met, oddly enough, I live at North Sydney in Sydney, and I was having a coffee with my wife at a local coffee shop, and this young bloke came up to me. This is about 13 years ago. Came up to me and said, "Oh, sorry, Mr. Martin, to interfere with your coffee, but I wonder, I've got something I'd love to tell you about, and do you mind giving me your email?" And so I said, not a trouble. So I gave it to him and walked home, paid the coffee, and walked home with my wife about 10 minutes away to our house. And there on the computer was an outline of this invention that Matthew had done, which is about trucking. And my connection with trucking only is my father was a mechanic, and I grew up with him as a mechanic. That's about the only mechanical skill I have is through my father. And it looked to me, though, it made sense, this suspension system that he'd invented. And so I went and had a coffee with him a couple of days later, and it was, again, more convincing. And I thought, from a journalist's point of view, gee, this would make a fantastic 60-minute story. The idea of this little Aussie inventor, in fact, he's not little, but this little invention out of Warrigal in country Victoria, taking on the trucking world, is the sort of thing like, like Wi-Fi was, and like the black box, and 50 other fantastic Aussie inventions. And I thought Matthew was just in the long line of these little Aussie inventors in a back shed who'd changed the world.
Okay, so let's jump straight to the product. I want to hear more about that, Matt. The Base Air suspension system that I believe has been adopted by Paccar, the Australian importer and assembler of the Kenworth and DAF trucks. Matt, how and why did you develop the product? And tell us as simply as you can why it's different to other suspension systems, why it's revolutionary.
Yeah, well, first of all, the initial invention itself was, I want to pay respect to two truck drivers. I initially came involved in it through a girl that I knew, and her stepfather and his friend had developed a system, and they trialled it with great results, and I'd been asked to come involved, and they didn't have a patent. So we had to go and obviously get the idea protected, which we did. And then the results were just, they spoke for themselves. Each time we'd put it on and trial it, every driver that'd get behind the wheel would just notice a difference automatically. So over a long number of years, I suppose initially you thought it was going to be an easy ride. You thought this would just be integrated into a suspension. You'd just go and visit one of the OEMs and they'd put it in. Well, yeah, we quickly learned that that's not the case. You need to have demand for the product, and in order to get demand, you need the fleets on board. So, over a number of years and a lot of knockbacks, we've now sort of found the secret sauce, because initially the valves and all the components to the idea were off the shelf, and that didn't attract people because they could see that they could go and buy those parts for a lot less. And there was a component in it that was missing that we didn't realise for a number of years, but it was when the two sides are in the neutral position, the air needs to be equalised. because they don't want the vehicle running down one side of the road carrying more pressure. And with that, I was able to think of an idea of joining the two systems together at the neutral position, which allowed us proprietary valves. So we're two systems when we're in an active mode, they're independent systems, and we're one system when we're in the neutral position. So we've got the best of both worlds, because most suspensions out there only carry one right high control valve, and the reason is that they want the air to equalise when it's in the neutral position. They don't really work on the dynamic side of the air management system, and that's what we can do.
Okay, so I was you referred to some of the challenges that you've had along the way and dashed dreams, etc. But if you want to jump in again, Matt, please do. But Ray, it wasn't a smooth ride without some bumps along the way to develop and have adopted this product that smooths the truck's drive, was it? I want you to tell me a bit about that, but I still don't really have clear what the product is and how it differs from traditional systems.
Yeah, well, the difference is, like, most systems, so with Kenworth, they use two right high control valves, but they have really one air supply that supplies the whole system. With our system, we're independently supplying the valves from the air tank, and then we're independently supplying the airbags independently on each side from the high control valve. So effectively, we have two independent systems, left and right, whereas everyone else has one system tied together. So, if air is required to be delivered to one side independently, if the weight goes on that side, we can do that, or we can remove air from the other side independently to take it back to the neutral position, which, effectively keeps the vehicle level. And then once it's level, we then join the two sides together to equalise the air. So the other systems can't do that. That's what differentiates our system.
It's interesting, Caroline, from my point of view as a journalist, I understand a small amount of the technical side, and I tend to ask the people I talk to for this what the effect is, what the impact of base is. So I've talked to maybe 50 plus drivers, taking everything from livestock to glass to bananas to to concrete, and I say to the truck drivers who've got base on, there are about 100 trucks and trailers that have it now. Look, I'm just a journalist. I don't have any shares in this. If you think it's crap, then tell me it's crap. And they, without exception, say it's certainly not crap. It's like turning on the light. Without exception, these drivers who do runs from Toowoomba to Darwin and everything in between say that it just seems to soften everything on the ride. It softens the ride for the driver in terms of driver fatigue, no question about it, no dispute. It softens the ride for the truck in terms of tyres and wear and tear on the truck, and it certainly softens the ride for whatever they're carrying, everything, as I say, from cattle to concrete. And that's over and over again. And each time I say, look, tell me if there's, if it doesn't make a difference, tell me. Without exception, the 50 plus drivers have said it is like, I drive a concrete agitator and it's like driving a boat. I put the base on and it's like driving an SUV, and that's the difference. And as I say, the next one who says it doesn't make a difference will be the first.
And Matt, are you able to tell us a bit more about the OEM Paccar adopting it? I mean, that's one big client, and I guess you are hopeful that a successful adoption here in Australia will mean a rollout into the Kenworth trucks in the US and elsewhere. So maybe tell us a bit more about your engagement with Paccar and your hopes for what that may lead to for Base Air. And I guess it'd be great too if you could name some other fleets that have adopted it, installed the system in the aftermarket.
Yeah, we've had a wonderful relationship with Paccar. We first went out and sort of looked for some of their larger clients to trial the system with, and those trials went particularly well, and that led to their clients requesting the system be fitted on a production line. That's yet to happen at this stage, and I'm not saying when that will happen, but I think there's a good chance that will happen. But yeah, the relationship with having them now has turned into one where they've decided to take it on in their Paccar parts distribution that outlines all the dealerships. So with all the dealerships, they've currently got it in their price book and people can request it. That's not to say they can request it on a new truck on the production line. That's just on any equipment. Someone can go into a Paccar dealership now and have a system. They can purchase a system and install the system. So to have got that recognition, it was a really good first step. And now we want to work and continue to work with all the OEMs. We're currently working with Hendricks and BPW and SAF Holland, who are the three largest suspension OEMs on trailers. And we've done testing with them, and we've been approved from two of those at the moment from a warranty perspective, and that's the key to base, having the warranty approved. So yeah, we're looking forward to working with all the OEMs.
Yeah, that's amazing. And can you also name any other fleets that have adopted it, installed the system via the aftermarket?
Yeah, some of our good customers are Martin's have been amazing. Martin's Livestock. There's Blenner's Transport, Wickham's, Emerald Carrying Company, and there's a few smaller fleets, and people. There's Condabri. They've been terrific, and now there's our latest one that's just started requesting equipment downline is Busy. So, and they're a very big fleet, and we're doing some testing with Toll Express, which is heading in the right direction.
Okay, so Ray, I guess you bring some star power to the table for Base Air and open some doors. Is that so? And what is exactly your role at Base Air? You said you weren't an investor.
Yeah, no, I've been a consultant. I've been paid for that by Matt, but ad hoc. But it hasn't been any deal. We simply do it. I initially saw this as a 60-minute story. As I said, I think it's, as a journalist, I think it's the most important Aussie invention since Wi-Fi, and that's saying something. I don't think anything has been potentially as successful as this one if it changes the trucking world and the trailer world around the globe. Then I think that's a really powerful invention. I'd love to see it succeed. I just like these stories. Over the years as a journalist, I've done a lot of stories about Aussie inventions and that change the world. And we fight way above our weight when it comes to those, everything back from smallpox right through to Wi-Fi and etc. And so I think the jump start plough and I mentioned the black box and the Cochlear implant, all these sorts of things Australian inventors have done over the years, and I think Matt's in line with that, with what he's done, and I'd just love to see it succeed. I think it's just a very good Australian story, but also it's going to change. Especially what grabs me is, having done a lot of stories about road carnage in Australia, the idea that you can actually have something that deals with fatigue, or at least contributes to as one of the answers to fatigue with drivers who are driving huge long distances in Australia with trucks and with trailers. And it terrifies all of us when we see these trucks, even though the drivers are usually much more skilled than anyone else on the road.
We'll be back after a short break for a word from our sponsor, Sofico Services.
Sofico is a world-leading provider of enterprise software for the automotive leasing, finance, and mobility industry. For more than 30 years, international leasing companies and OEMs count on Sofico's expertise and technology to help them transform innovative product concepts into streamlined business processes and engaging customer experiences. With more than 370 experts, 8 offices on 4 continents, and an annual growth averaging 15%, Sofico is perfectly positioned to help its customers succeed in a rapidly changing market where electrification, shared fleets, and multimodal mobility challenge us and our customers to play a pioneering role. Continuous investment in people, innovation, and leading-edge technology is the basis for continued growth and success.
Matt, I was reading on the website that BASE, B-A-S-E, is an acronym for Balance and Safety Enhancement. October is recognised as Safe Work Month. I'm keen to acknowledge anything that can make the truck safer for the driver and, of course, other road users. So, Matt, I wonder if you could talk more to that safety aspect. And I am terribly curious to know how it helps. Say a truck has been improperly loaded or is not full, and a load shifts, how this system might help in those instances.
Yep. Yeah, well, the number one safety factor with this is driver fatigue. Every driver continues to say how much fresher they feel when they get to the other end. And, fatigue's the biggest killer on the road. So, what it does is for the driver, it's the driver input at the steering wheel. That's what we've found too scientifically. It gives the driver a much more predictable feel wherever they want to go. The system, they're not fighting the wheel. And that's now been backed up with the data that we've just gone out and tested with the OEMs, which is very, very important. And when weight's shifting, we're able to counter the weight, the weight shift with, our independent air supply. So, like everybody says, it's more the suspension. When a driver goes and wants to, say veer left, well, what's happening a lot of the times with the suspension is it creates a bounce, and out of that bounce, it produces, and this is technical, but I've learned it, a suspension frequency. And what we're doing is we're separating that frequency with our independent systems. So we're sort of, leveling that out rather than it becoming a bigger problem. And through that goes in through the whole combination. So we're seeing less freight damage, better tyre wear, and on that safety side, just driver fatigue is enormous.
I spoke to Caroline, to a driver who's done Toowoomba to Brisbane for the last 20 years, a guy named Tim, with 3 rigs behind him, and he goes up that road through Mount Isa. And I said, so we spoke to him when he headed off, and he said, what's this system, and get it off. It's upsetting my normal driving habit. And we let him go. And about 2 hours later, spoke to him, and he said, he's now adjusted to it. He said, it's the best thing I've ever had. So we had a camera crew meet him up in Darwin when he arrived in Darwin about 2 days later. And he said on camera to me, he said, look, I've done this for 20 years. He said, every time I've done a 3-day trip from Toowoomba to Darwin, I feel like I need a chiropractor. And he said, I got out of this time and I felt like I should go for a run. He said, I felt that good. And I think that's the difference. Without exception, drivers keep saying that it's that whatever has happened, they just, the softness of the ride is such that the truck sits up straight, but they feel better at the end. So as I say to every driver, look, you don't have to BS me, you just tell me the truth. I don't care either way. I've got no money involved. And they say without exception. And even we've tried it out with SUVs up in the cattle country up in Gundawindi, and the young blokes there with a Toyota SUV have actually had a ton of fodder on the back, and they've moved that around at various times. They've noticed it sitting up so correctly and not diving when they brake, and not sitting up when they take off fast. And they've tried to move half a ton of weight from one side of the back to the other side to try and upset the system, and the system just corrects itself. And that's not me saying, that's what they say to me. They say, look, we've tried to fool this bugger, but it won't be fooled. It just settles and straightens up.
Yeah, it was also fascinating. I was listening to one of the testimonials on the website saying that when they stop for their rest break, they're even like getting a better sleep because the stuff that they're hauling, which is cattle, are not shifting around as much, or they're shifting around isn't affecting the cabin. Anyway, just on that Martin stock haulage, Ray, that's a big livestock carrier that's based in the Hunter Valley where I'm living. Is that any relation to you, Ray Martin? Martin stock haulage?
No, not at all. No, a different. It's a fantastic company, but not at all. I wish it was. I wish that I had because it's such a successful story from starting one truck 60 years ago into what I've got. I think 70 or 80 trucks nowadays, but and lots of trailers. But no, I'd like it to be. But we've noticed that when we did the stuff with Martins, that other truck drivers around the country obviously use Martins as almost the high jump bar. And they take notice of what they're doing, and they've been so pleased with Base. They're now putting on all their trailers and all their new trucks.
And yeah, interesting, Ray. We haven't met before today's call, so you know I didn't know, had no inkling that you had an interest in transport. But how incredible a sector is it? Like, there's so much happening, so many developments. It's so exciting for me as a reporter too. And, you know, what about you? What's your take on the Australian transport sector, and, you know, how exciting it is to be interested in it?
No, it's vital, and it's revolutionised transport. I've just been doing a documentary up in outback Queensland, in a place called Dejara, which was the biggest depot for livestock in the world in the 1910s and 1920s. And all the cattle and sheep from the top end of the strait came to Dejara and went on a train to the coast, and it was bigger than Texas, bigger than Chicago, bigger than anywhere in the world for about 20 years. And then the trucks came, and that all changed, because trucks could then pick them up from the various stations and take them around. They didn't have to go to the railhead. So we know how trucks have revolutionised Australia and transport industry generally, and also just how efficient they are. But what surprised me, Caroline, in the 13 years that I've been mates with Matt and become very good friends, what surprised me is just how conservative the big companies are. And the big companies that clearly have made profits because they build good trucks, and they're very reluctant to do any change unless they've invented themselves. So I was reminded that even the ABS braking system that Mercedes picked up took about 50 years before it was, from the moment it was invented to the moment where it's adopted in the motor car industry. And of course, there's no car that doesn't have ABS anymore. And I think this is what Base can do as well for the trucking industry, with trucks and trailers and buses and caravans and SUVs all around the way. But it's just trying to get through primarily engineers. Engineers by nature are more conservative, I think, than accountants and bankers, and they are very reluctant to change. Even when you get something as, you know, as a journalist, I thought that if you produced something and you could prove that it worked and made a difference, well, you know, a million people would run to it. But it's not the case. In trucking, they're very conservative. It's easier for, you know, let someone like Les Blenner, who was the banana king in Australia. He tried it and loved it, and now is putting on all his trailers. And he's able to simply say, it's my company, and I want it on there because I see it makes a difference to the drivers and a difference to the bananas. But if you get the big multinational companies, they tend to go through boards, and it takes them forever to make a decision, even though they know that it's a revolutionary change. To try and get them to front up is very hard. And I can understand if Matt was, he's probably not as frustrated as me, but as a journalist, I keep seeing, you know, if 1 + 1 = 2, why don't you go ahead with it? And yet they're always very reluctant for multinational reasons, I guess.
Oh, pardon the pun, but I guess so. You're in it for the long haul, in the long haul.
Yeah, you do. I think that's, as I say, the best example is ABS, in how it's changed the safety in the world of cars. And I think Base will change the safety in the world of trucking. It's just a matter of getting these multinationals across the line, and for such a great little Aussie invention.
And I guess we need to finish up soon, but is there anything else that either of you want to add, or maybe talk about the potential you do envisage for Base Air now, and or any goals that you've actually got for the growth of the Base Air product that's now been officially launched this year. So Ray and Matt, shall we just grab a final comment from each of you?
Yeah, well, I think just the fact that we're going to now, the biggest thing that Base has had to get the approval of is because we are an air management system and we integrate into a suspension, we don't make the suspension, and we need the suspension OEMs, the people who make the suspension, to approve us from a warranty perspective. And for the fact that trailer suspension, have not used dual high control valves as part of their warranty for decades, and now we've been approved by two of the big three. It really opens a lot of doors for us, because what we've found is that most of the fleets, the larger fleets, prefer to adopt Base on new equipment at the point where they can depreciate the system, by ordering it on the new equipment. I think that'll change going forward, but at the moment that's the case, and it's been very important for us to put that in place. And we're grateful for the OEMs and working with us and giving us the opportunity. And now we look forward to attacking the market and being able to go out there and not only trial the product, but what we've found is people have straight away, there's been for 18 months now, two really large fleets have wanted to put it on every trailer, but they've been unable to from a warranty perspective. Well, now that'll allow them to go and put it on trailers, and a lot of other fleets will do the same. So it's a very exciting period for us now to be attacking the market.
Karen, I think that if you're a truck owner and you've got a truck company, then we all know you're paying upwards towards $500,000 for a prime mover, and you're paying almost that much money for 3 trailers to go with it. It's a lot of money you're investing in your machine and machinery, and without exception, I could simply say as a journalist, without exception, every truck driver or owner I've spoken to in the last 13 years who's tried it has said, wow, this is amazing. This really just changes our lives. And to try and get it from that point where, go online and have a look at what Base is about, and then talk to there are 100 vehicles in Australia that have it today. That's trailers as well as trucks, and just see what people say. I mean, it's the proof's in the pudding. It's an extraordinary difference in terms of driver safety, in terms of tyres, in terms of the safety and the if you like, the viability of the product, whether it's bananas or whether it's cattle. And it's just extraordinary. And this is not, some bit of nonsense that's come out of someone's back shed. This really is something that works. And it'd be, I'd just ask people to give it a go. If they don't like it, it's cheap enough to get it off. But I would guarantee from those I've spoken to that it'll change their lives.
I guess another point is, from what I've read about it too, like the return on investment must come around pretty quickly.
It does, yeah, especially with tyre wear. Like the tyre wear is just next level. And the other thing is, there's a driver shortage out there at the moment, and it's hard to, try and get drivers, into the industry. And this is something that just every single time a driver gets behind the wheel, they don't want to get out of it. So it's a really good thing for operators to be able to, get this into their fleet and make drivers happy, because the drivers just have they're the ones that just have the great experience in it, and it changes their life. And, it's such a hard, demanding job, a truck driver's life, going up and down the highways every day. And then all of a sudden you get something that makes your job easier. It's, it's much more attractive towards people who want to be in the industry.
Well, I think that's a really nice way to end it, Matthew. And I want to say to both of you, Matthew and Ray, thank you so much for your time today. It was a great pleasure for me to talk with you, and I wish you and Base Air all the best.
Thank you very much, Caroline.
You've been listening to Fleet Auto News podcast. It was edited and produced by Isabella Fiorentino. Thank you again to our new sponsor, Sofico Services. It's great to have you on board. The original theme music for this podcast was created by Isabella Fiorentino. You can follow us on Spotify. Just search for Fleet Auto News. We're also on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Our website is fleetautonews.com, where you can get all our stories, videos and podcasts. Until next time, drive safely and take care.